And thank you, everybody, for joining us for this conversation, the final conversation of the day. We are the gauntlet in between you and your drinks at the VIP party. Treat us nice, though. I want to thank everybody at Canada House and the Frontier Collective for being able to put on this wonderful day for Vancouver Day. South by is an incredible place where we get to find world leaders in a realm of thoughts. And today I'm really excited about this conversation around AI and how we'll redefine storytelling, creativity, and identity. We have Matt, Allison, and Chris, and I'm going to get them each to introduce themselves and tell us about their role. Matt, can you tell us about where you are today and how you got there?
Hi, everybody. My name is Matt. I work for Google in New York City, and I lead global creative innovation for a team called EBX. And my job is a little bit of a job of a translator, connecting the dots between 0 to 1 technology and storytelling and creativity. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about how do we use emerging technology to tell stories, to solve design problems. And the last 12 months been, like many people, a lot about AI and trying to figure out how AI can be used for storytelling, filmmaking, but also how we can use it to transform the creative process from the strategy, the brief, the insight, to the ideation, to the pre-production, to the production.
Wonderful. Welcome, Matt. Allison, can you tell us about yourself and the Foresight Institute?
Yeah, sure. I'm Allison. I run a nonprofit organization called the Foresight Institute. It's based in the Bay Area in California. And we existed since 1986, so longer than I've been around. But we have since then supported basically undervalued science and technology for a positive future. So that includes longevity biotechnology, molecular nanotechnology, neurotechnology, lots of AI, and then some space stuff. And we give out grants, prizes, fellowships, you name it, in like quirky science and tech areas, basically. And obviously, many of these areas have been revolutionized by AI, but we also have this existential hope program where we try to think positively about the long-term future, and AI also comes in there. So I'm excited to chat more about that. I should also say, 10 years ago, I did my dissertation on AI safety, and back then my philosophy professor was like, that is such an abstract topic. Why would you think about that? Philosophy professor, mind you, he's done trolley problems up and down, but here we are, and I'm really happy to be on the panel.
Amazing. AI safety. Thank you, Allison. And Chris Downs, you're the EVP and the Chief Design Officer for Mattel, the place of Barbies and Hot Wheels. Is that correct?
Yeah, Barbies and Hot Wheels, and yeah, it's a whole house of brands: American Girl, and Fisher-Price, and Polly Pocket, and Masters of the Universe, and a whole bunch of other different brands. And I lead design and innovation for Mattel. And of course, the subject of AI, as well as the subject of, kind of naturally grown resins and sustainability and everything else, is kind of the tension space for consumers of today and for the company. And so we're looking at it from low tech to high tech. But AI is definitely the hot topic, certainly of the show, but also it's a hot topic in the halls of Mattel.
Absolutely. We look at AI as maybe the most powerful technology that we've seen come across since the beginning of the internet. And it is impacting all facets of creativity and workflow and intelligence. There are these wonderful powers baked into these large language models that we've been building. And they've sucked in all of human history worth of stories and information. And I'm wondering today, do we think of LLMs as storytelling machines? And are you using them to tell stories at your organizations? Or are they just giving you more time to be able to think about how to connect with your audience? So, Chris, I'd love to ask you, are you seeing AI impact the way that you're thinking about stories within Mattel?
I think that the answer is probably yes, but there are a lot of asterisks. Certainly, as a large publicly traded company, Mattel is very aware of and concerned about the things around intellectual property protection and things of that nature that you should be concerned about. So I think that being in the somewhat toddler stages that everyone is in right now, ensuring that we have governance, that we have the right kind of thought leadership, that we have the right kind of experimentation going on for our storytellers and for our designers is the stage that we're at. So what a difference 6 months makes. I mean, within the last 10 months, we've established the Office of AI to ensure that as an enterprise, we're looking at finance and supply chain and design and product development and all aspects of the company to ready ourselves and be aware of how to be operating in a best practice sort of way and leveraging every opportunity there is for a large company like Mattel. On the design side, we have a separate track that's kind of a subset of the Office of AI within our Future Lab team that is specifically working with our practitioners, our toy designers, our hybrid toy, so connected play developers and designers, to understand at an ideation level, how are we leveraging the tools? At a storytelling level, how are we using tools to aid in the speed and the fidelity of the storytelling? And then ultimately, what goes to the consumer, that is an area that we're staying a little bit further away from at this point. We're still relying on kind of human touch and human execution for that final step. There are certain platforms and spaces where we feel more comfortable because of kind of closed source environments like Adobe and Firefly, and it's part of our existing workflow already. But it's kind of feel like it's a little bit of the Wild West, and we're building up our fencing and trying to understand exactly what the environment is today.
Allison, when we think about storytelling and we think about, let's say, philosophy, and when you're doing your thesis, storytelling has been so important to humanity and how we've evolved as a species. It's how our brains have been configured. Stories are at the center of the best house party moments, and they are at the center of our world's most loved brands. I'm wondering, when you look at storytelling and AI, is AI giving us opportunity to storytell in more powerful and more creative ways?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, maybe I can give like 2 specific examples, maybe one coming more from the scientific lens and the other one more from the kind of creative lens. So we have, for the past few years, built these technology trees to map out the space, for example, from where we currently are to longevity, escape velocity, all the different capabilities along the road, where people can like invest, where open challenges are. And that has taken us, like the first iterations of these trees, we have them for all of our different technology areas, have taken us a year to build with different researchers going out there. And now there's a new AI tool that you can like do that with automatically. It gives you like kind of self-prompted answers. You can check with Perplexity and Elicit AI. And the best thing about that, though, is not only that it like absolutely kind of crunches the amount of time that you need to spend on it, but also obviously the humans have to check this, right? But the great thing is the storytelling aspect of people interacting with the trees. So you can basically query the technology tree. So you as a young researcher, you can say like, hey, I'm interested in this field. And it's almost like in Neil Stephenson's book, The Diamond Age, like this little primer that gives you like a spiel that is connected to your personal kind of story of how this technology will influence you and how you can impact that technology. So specifically like where you could work, where you could apply, where you could fund things. And that has been totally a game changer because you can really individualize different stories in the scientific domain and really like onboard people to very difficult fields like molecular nanotechnology. And then the other one is perhaps more on the creative side. We've had this existential hope world building course that's still ongoing, where it's basically like a 10-week course. We onboard people to create really positive worlds in 2045 to kind of like fight the doomerism that is a little bit prevalent today, and try to imagine them, what if we don't have AGI, like artificial general intelligence, but like really strong narrow AI for specific fields, and how positive, like what positive worlds can we imagine? Obviously, there's a lot of AI going into that creative and into that storytelling space, but we're also really trying to focus people's imagination of just like, what would you like to do with this technology, right? Like, because we focus a lot, at least in my, like, I guess, sub-community in San Francisco, a lot on the risks. And so I think it's really refreshing to just like think about what would you actually want in ambitious futures in a few years out, right? Because that like makes us much more likely that we can actually do the steps to get there rather than just trying to avoid the things that we don't want, because there's a million of them and we will never get closer.
Incredible. Matt, AI is changing creativity. It's giving us a lot of new tools. It's allowing us to move really, really quickly, and I think in ways that maybe none of us had ever imagined. I'm wondering, how are you using AI for creativity at work today? How are you seeing it change maybe the way that your team operates?
First thing, I absolutely love the positive. If you want to build a positive future, you need to think it, you need to visualize it, and so I think it's great what you're doing. And similarly to you, Chris, I think a lot of the teams around me are using AI right now more during the ideation, strategy, and pre-production process But then when it comes to production, there are so many questions around liability and copyright. It's a bit of a Wild West that there's still a lot of hesitation. And I think that's across the industry and the creative industry. It's a lot of what I see is people are using it more during that brainstorming phase pretty much. But when it comes to like, let's launch a film or let's launch an ad or like create a video game, there's still a lot of hesitation and it's a very gray area. In my case, my team, we really use it as a creative partner. You know, I work across different creative industries, but one of those is advertising. And in advertising, there was that creative revolution 60 years ago. And the idea was, oh, now you put an art director and a copywriter together, and magic happens. At the time, it was a revolution. Now it's just the standard in the industry. And what I'm seeing now is pretty much that we're moving from that creative team setup to a new setup, which is pretty much a creative director and an AI, you know, whether it's an LLM or like a diffusion tools for image. And so the way my team really uses it, and myself in the day-to-day, is really as a sounding box, not a tool that's going to replace your thinking, but it's a tool that's going to help you, you know, sometimes go faster, guide your thinking, help you see some limits into what you're doing. Starts with the brief, you know. You need a good brief, usually, if you want to have like a good ideation. Well, LLMs can help you actually question the brief and refine the brief and reformulate it in order to make sure you have all the right information. I use also LLMs for research and strategy and insights. There are some interesting AI-powered search engines now that actually are great to go find data and sources. And of course, you need to double check. You know, it's not going to, you shouldn't take it face value, but it will take you to the right links, and that's super fast when you're looking for certain insights. You know, it really helps you a lot. During ideation, I think it's also obviously powerful. Again, I'm not a fan, you could, but I'm not a fan of asking the AI for ideas. I'm more a fan of like, help me go through the right process, guide me through the right questions. And so in that case, it's a great tool for asking you the questions, and then based on your answers, keep guiding you through it. Last but not least, you know, in the business of creativity and emerging technology, you, by definition, try to invent something that doesn't exist, and so visualizing it is very important. And using text-to-image tools to very quickly put together a mock-ups of, you know, a future-forward experience is also incredible. It's very hard to convince your leadership or, you know, or your partners sometime when you have something that doesn't exist. They just don't see it, they don't imagine it, and instead of sometime, you know, struggling to visualize it, you know, and spend a lot of resources for like a simple mock-up, it's much easier now to very quickly bring to life a visual that will help convince them. So again, it's a lot about the ideation and the strategy, much more than the production now for us.
I think it's incredible how we can see this technology impacting so many different organizations and so many different workflows. But it's also a lot of fun. I don't know if you've ever tried to create a funny image with something like Midjourney or DALL-E. And we've never had a more fun technology. Or, you know, Chris, I'd love to get your perspective. Is AI really fun? Is it going to make our toys more fun? Is Barbie going to be more fun because we've got maybe AI brains that we can now plug into our toys? And I'd love to know where's the limit? How far can we go in integrating immersive, intelligent experiences into the toys that we've grown up with?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's a little bit of a lightning rod question in the toy industry because the age of our consumer is so young, and parents, of course, they're inherently sensitive, and they're even more sensitive today when kind of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt related to AI amplifies their curiosity about anything they're putting in front of their kids. I do want to just quickly, though, before I finish answering the question, +1 on Matthew, like Matt, the way that you were describing early ideation and the ability of a practitioner, of a designer, sitting on staff, knowing what they want to get out, but not having to spend the time that it takes to do the visual dialogue, the visual communication. It could be an animation, it could be a model, it could be a sketch. Being able to do things like text to image and quickly ideate and frame and be able to sell, because the fidelity in something like Midjourney is excellent. In fact, in 9 times out of 10, you're better than the designer skills in terms of the illustration chops that it would take to communicate in such a hi-fi, high-quality sort of way. So what we're seeing in early ideation is actually really powerful, and it's an unlocker, and it is exciting, and it does make the design process in some case more fun because you can get ideas out faster. It's not taking away the ingenuity or the creativity from the practitioner. It's allowing them actually to exercise their thoughts more quickly and even more accurately in some cases. Sometimes it also takes you, just like brainstorming with another human being can take you into an unexpected direction. Play with Midjourney for 5 minutes and it's going to take you to some unexpected and delightful places, but it still requires the human to be a part of the journey. I think that it relates, as it relates to AI in consumer-facing product, we have done things with Barbie, kind of the equivalent of a chatbot or being able to connect. Think Teddy Ruxpin for those of you that are of a certain age, like me. Being able to connect with your product in a way that seems magical and in some ways uncanny. I think that actually we're probably stepping backward from consumers being willing to accept those types of products, at least when we're gatekeepers of brands like Barbie and Thomas the Tank and Hot Wheels and brands like that are oriented toward a young consumer. Trust is a paramount value that has to be retained in any era for these brands to continue to have the longevity and value that we've created and those before us have created. So I think that there's probably a little bit of time before we're having a connected Barbie. We've done Hello Barbie in the past with pull-string technology, and it was safe. That also was a PR nightmare for us, and it doesn't even have the FUD of today's AI around it. One thing I will put out there, and we can get into it more later if there's interest in hearing about it, we did launch the very first AI-enabled board game in Pictionary versus AI, and that was a 6-month speed to market. We launched it, and we're really using it as a learning platform with something that isn't as volatile and sensitive as a brand like Barbie, in order to hear from consumers about not just what their adoption is, what value from a play mechanic point of view can we put in there, and what is general sentiment. We're learning a ton out of it, and what we know so far, having been out in the market for about 7 weeks now, is consumers are afraid of AI. Mass market consumers are not there yet as it relates to mass market toy brands that they want to put in front of their kids or their family.
So I think this is a great look and view into how AI is impacting our most important and loved brands on the planet. We're using it for a lot of different ideation, it's amplifying our ideas, and it's improving our workflows. Allison, if we look forward, let's say 10 years from now, does this lead us into cyborgism?
Well,
what
I'm
is
glad-
cyborgism? Where are we going? Where's AI taking us over the next 10 years?
Glad you primed me with it. Cyborgism is maybe not what you guys think it is. If you Google it, there's a few interesting less wrong posts on it. But I think that, on the identity question, just like where do we go from here in like 10 years or something? Obviously, no one knows. I'm not claiming I do. But I think that one interesting thing that we should be looking forward to is basically like really using AI much more synergistically with us and being much more in collaboration with it. And I think, well, the cyborgism framework basically means that rather than using, in AI safety, you have a thing called RLHF, where you try to align the AI system just with human preferences. But that works relatively well. There are some slip-ups every once in a while. But I think it's really interesting to also think, what does the AI have that we don't have? Like, an AI has an entirely new space of kind of like creativity that is very different to what humans usually come up with. And this cyborgism kind of like paradigm really means like leaning into the differentness of AI and using it almost in the synergistic way, that you basically, not just for creativity, but also, for example, let's say you have something like an AI fiduciary, basically like an AI agent that really kind of like has a good download of like your history, your preferences, and so forth, and can go out there in the world and find new cooperative opportunities for you, right? AIs can like look at research much more. They can find new people. They can write a bunch of people, and like having these AIs almost as our our mind extension to some extent. They will then be collaborating with other AIs to point out different collaboration opportunities, and then the humans come in the loop. And so I think really like leaning into this differentness of AI is, I think, something that's really interesting. And then beyond that, obviously, we can think about more ambitious approaches. Like we have one AI grant that is focused on neurotech approaches for AI, and one big one is brain-computer interfaces for AI, all the way down to whole brain emulation or lo-fi uploads. that is more 10 years out, but I think really finding ways in which we can actually integrate with these systems, in which we can really in which they can help us make sense of data flow, in which we can actually fully merge with them a little bit more, has some really interesting identity questions around it. But I'm really looking forward to it. I think usually the more we can grow our circle of kind of identity in our circle of collaboration, I think that is the driver of human progress, right? The fact that we can collaborate much more richly with other humans, if we can enable us, or if we're able to do that with AI systems as well, that would be great. Then there's a few questions that you brought up, which are the questions around privacy. For us, it's a lot about computer security as well. If we have these kind of more digital based infrastructure with which we mostly collaborate with AI systems, we need really good privacy, and we need really, really good computer security, I think. And I think those will be kind of the guardrails of the future. And from there, we can hopefully find rich opportunities to cooperate. There's some really interesting research out on all of these areas that I'm happy to point you to, but that's kind of the meme that I want to convey.
Oh, I love to hear it. Matt, part of what you do is sitting at the epicenter of the future of technology around the world. And your job is to look forward and predict what tools we need to invest in and how they're going to impact us. What are you most excited about when you look at the technology that you're using for creativity and other purposes within your role at Google?
I mean, I look at AI and creativity at Google and outside of Google, and there are a few things I'm interested in. One is understanding indeed how it's going to transform the creative process. I think now we're still in the phase where we took the existing creative process and we tried just to augment it, to accelerate it. And I'm looking forward to seeing absolutely new ways of ideating, new design process, new methodologies, that will be AI native, and developed from scratch with AI. Two, the interface. I think we're still in a phase where the interfaces of AI are very basic. It's again kind of a skeuomorphism phase of AI. So we get the chatbot pretty much, and I think we're moving toward much more multimodalities, much more fluid ways of interacting, where you're going to combine potentially context and voice and text and image. And so I'm very curious what's going to come out of that. I give you an example of multimodality. I'm using now LLMs to actually provide a pitch deck critique. I download my pitch deck, I make it a PDF, I give it to an LLM, and I ask it to give me a grade and to give me advice. And that's something I never thought of before, and it's very powerful, and it's an example of multimodality. I think the last place where I'm very excited is more the format of the content. As we all said, I think it's a bit early to really bring AI in all production. There are a lot of questions. But something we see with the history of any medium is that first people try to recreate the past medium with the new tools. That happened with photography, trying to recreate painting. That happened with the motion camera, trying to recreate plays. And it took 100 years between the invention of the camera and the invention of reality TV shows. And so with AI, I think right now we're more trying to recreate what exists. We're trying to recreate film. We are trying to recreate potentially video games. We're trying to recreate traditional literature. What I'm excited about is what is the new format that we don't know yet that is going to be AI native, that is only possible with AI? And what does it mean for expression, for art, for culture? I have no idea. The only thing I know is that it's not going to look like what we have now, and the future of culture and AI is going to be very different from just trying to recreate pretty much something that is a 20th century, medium, video. So that's kind of where my mind is going mostly.
I love it. What happens when the AI gives you a D on your pitch deck?
Well, the first time I grew up in the French education system, so it's like 0 to 10 or 0 to 20, but it gave me a 7 out of 10, which is meh. But it gave me a recommendation, and so I was very impressed. I tried multiple LLMs. I think they have different pros and cons. And it gave me great feedback on the flow of the narrative. It would give me feedback on missing information. It would give me suggestions on the slides. And that's a powerful, simple hack. Again, if you have any pitch deck, a startup pitch deck, a creative pitch deck, just download it as a PDF, give it to an LLM, ask it for a grade and a recommendation, and it works well. I ended up at 9.5, which I probably would have never been able to do by myself, I guess. Because I'm too lazy for that.
AI-assisted progression in pitch decks. Chris, I want to touch again on new formats, because I think Matt is is really underlining something that we're seeing as a trend here. We have people like yourself, chief design officer at one of the world's top brands or house of brands, and you're expected to know what's coming next. Do you look at AI as creating new formats in the future, and are you excited for that? And maybe think through the lens of, you started the innovation lab at Atari, right? And so we think of as Atari as one of the most important game companies in history. So do you look at AI right now as being able to bring in new game formats? Or is that, somewhere further than the pitch decks have right now?
I don't know if I'm going to answer it exactly in the way that you're intending the question, but I am going to take a swing because I think there's something interesting in that. I think one is around kind of our workflow and the way that we create, and I do think that there is going to be evolution there for sure, as we start to come to terms with. On the inside, at an ideation inside of the house level, what we do and how we do it, and what those capabilities are actually providing in terms of speed, productivity, and efficacy on the output. Consumer-facing piece, I think, is going to be probably the piece that is the most squirrely, but maybe the most exciting in the future. And so I think that there are going to be different formats and different ways of engaging, and how that feels right now. Just as something that goes through my head as I guess I'm a designer, forever designer, but I studied industrial design. My first job out of school in 1993 was working for a company called Parker Brothers, which is a division of Hasbro, and I was designing toys. The design process for me was always easy. It was the beauty of coming up with an idea, sketching it out on paper. I had a good wrist, which means nothing today, virtually, which is a bit of tear. Mm-hmm. But what I hated doing was the control drawings, getting engineering ready as a designer. I'm like, I did go to school for it, but I don't like that part of it. I had a big drafting table, a big piece of vellum, and it was hours, days doing that stuff. And I think of the evolution of workflow from drafting board to CAD, computer-aided design, and what that did to the workflow in terms of focusing creativity in the front end of the process in a way that actually delivers a superior result and superior happiness if you happen to be the person behind it. I think there are going to be those types of evolutions and even revolutions for our creators as we move forward. On the outside of it, I do think it's interesting, and the reason we went so quickly to market with Pictionary versus AI was to experiment and to understand. Number one, what is sentiment and tolerance for consumers? But number two, what can we learn about, in this case, it's us against the machine. Is that interesting? Are there opportunities for new play patterns and new engagement models on the consumer-facing side, particularly those that don't feel as sensitive in terms of intellectual property or Big Brother listening? And so that's part of the experiment. I think that, to answer your question in short, both sides, inside and consumer-facing, are going to evolve, and the ways that we engage the platforms and the models will look and feel different over time as well.
So there's a lot of change. There's a lot more happiness with the designer, who can spend more time focusing on things they love, less time on technical drawings that maybe they don't. So it's a very abundant technology, which I think is allowing us to transform as individuals and the organizations that we help shepherd. Allison, when you think of AI, is it making you more powerful? Is it making you more creative? And is it changing how you feel about your ability to impact this world?
It definitely is, but I feel like to some extent we're a little bit like beholden by, relatively, like at least again in my subcommunity, like relatively like negative mimetic cycles around it, and I feel like we need to kind of break out of the box more for us to actually be empowered by it. And we recently had this AI institution hackathon, basically where we tried to get people on the legal front, on the AI front, on various different builders fronts together, and we're like, what kinds of goals would you like AI to achieve in the world, and what are the institutions that we could help build and fund to make those goals more likely. And the winner there was a flourishing foundation, basically using AI for human flourishing, is proposing really like, let's use AI to really increase human well-being. And it obviously starts with mental health, but there's so many other ways in which we could tap into that. And they did this really interesting analysis where they put Replica next to a few other, like, you know, some of the more therapeutic chatbots, measured them according to how well they're faring. And I think we can really just like, we have to tap into this more, into this like, you know, really like, how can we use AI systems to actually like help humans become the people that we want to be? And I think a big part of that is also onboarding folks. You know, like I think you both mentioned it, like there's a little bit of reservation, you know, in the general public. And I think you only, you have that to some extent because people are worried, you know, about what that means for them. But I feel like if they are empowered and they see that AI can help them and that, you know, there's like opportunity there for them to use AI in their personal lives, but also organizationally and like society-wise for them to really build better futures, that there's like opportunities there that are fundable, then I think we will be seeing a lot more just kind of like take up from folks, right? But for that you need to show people, you know, hands-on that it's possible. And I think that's still a little bit of the kind of gap that makes it a little bit more uncanny than I think it is.
So, panel, thank you for this conversation. We've reached time. Is there any parting words that you'd like to leave with the crowd right now? Maybe the way that they should think about technology within their household or their workplace.
I wanna quote Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee said, "Be water." I don't know if you remember that, right? And that's kind of an advice I'm giving a lot of people around me is like, we don't know where things are going, right? It's hard to predict the future. We have a few ideas, but we might be completely wrong. And whether you're a creative, an innovator, a professional, the only thing sure is that change is going to accelerate, that you probably will need to constantly re-educate yourself, that you probably will have to pivot many times. And so it's more from mindset. I think it's like being flexible and resilient is going to become even more important than before in such a fast-moving landscape. There's clearly a lot of change, sometimes disruption coming with AI. Hopefully it will be mostly positive, and I love, again, that we can focus on the positive. But yeah, be water, I think is going to be helpful.
All right. Be water. And then go get some water. Can we give these incredible panelists a round of applause?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.